move on to the main agenda. Just as welcome all our new governors who are joining us. I think quite a few are joining us today. So welcome, and I'll be having a chance to give you an induction to the governor's role in due course. So, you know, enjoy and take part today, but I'll give you a chance to go through, and Julie Hill will be able to assist you with any technical details as well. So thank you very much for that. In terms of the agenda, under item 7, Liz Chapman was going to give the patient experience report, but Kim Delman is going to do it instead. So welcome, Kim. You're here somewhere. I remember seeing you.
Yes, I'm here.
Thanks so much indeed. So without more ado, if we may, we'll move on to apologies for absence from Julie.
Yeah, we've got apologies from Tom O'Kane, Rifat, Joan and June Carmichael.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest? Okay. Oh, somebody's got their mic on. I just if anyone's got their mic not muted, would you be able to mute it? Or the background noise from somewhere. That's good. Thank you very much. Okay, minutes of the last formal meeting of Council of Governors on the 10th of March. Any corrections, please, from those who are there?
Just got one, Martin.
Thank you, John.
On page 6, the third paragraph from the bottom of the page talks about success planning. It should be succession planning.
Okay.
In the comment I made.
Thank you.
A minor thing, but it's rather different, I think.
Well, I hope it's success as well as succession.
Oh, a successful succession planning would be very good. So maybe we could amend to say that. Have a successful succession plan. Yes.
Absolutely. Thanks. Any other corrections
as well?
Tom, yeah.
Yeah, it's just that my name was down with Paul Myers-Co as joining in the review of persistent complainants, and it's actually Tom O'Kane rather than myself.
Okay, thank you for that. And I see Julia's got her hand up.
Hi, yes, sorry, my internet dropped out. I'm a staff governor, not a public governor.
Thank you. All right, with that, unless there's something else we've missed, we'll move on. And if you might, Julie, election results, please.
Yeah, it's just to formally note the outcome of the elections, and it's great news that we've got no vacancies, and we've had no vacancies for a long time. So thanks to all those governors who helped us promote the governor role.
Thank you very much, and saying welcome again to everyone. Item 6 is the committee steering groups, so we'll go through those. John, living life to the full.
Yes, Martin. Our last meeting, we had a interesting talk from Tracy Slegg, who came and talked to us about the staff survey. I know we're talking to the full group about the staff survey today, I think, aren't we?
Yeah.
But Tracy gave us a very good sort of heads up. This was following up from when Jane Nicholson came to talk to the group last year, before she actually became in a substantive post. It was really interesting, and I think it helped us understand a lot more about what the staff survey actually is and does. I mean, I've been a governor a long time, but I hadn't really had the detail of how many questions are asked and what it can tell people. And Tracy was able, and I've highlighted some of the things in my summary that Tracy was able to tell us. And it was particularly interesting this year, the extra free text answers about the COVID pandemic, and how that the trust has learnt some very good lessons from that, and how we're now starting to communicate more in modern ways within the trust. It's been driven by that, and I think the survey results and the comments from that show that staff appreciated that, and it's working very well indeed.
Very good. Any questions for
So-
John? Oh, sorry, John. Didn't
No,
mean to cut you.
I'm just reading my own comments because a little while ago I put them up. So yeah. Oh, yes, we also talked a bit about the trust appointing the wellbeing guardian, because I know that was something they've been outstanding for a while, and Mark Day, one of our Neds, is taking up that role, and I think Mark actually commented at the meeting. I can't remember now, but yeah, so good progress, I think, basically, Martin, and very pleasantly surprised how good it does. I mean, obviously this picker organization, wherever it is we use, seem to produce a lot of actual analysis, and it's great to hear that we're using that analysis to actually do something now, rather than just have, oh, they're nice figures, thank you very much. So good to see. But yes, if anyone's got any further questions about that, please ask. If not, next committee.
Anything particular for John before we move on? No? Okay, membership and public engagement. Tom, is that you? I forget.
Yes, that's me. Right, well, just to say, in the report, you can see we're doing well with membership. We're well above the 10,000 target for total members and 7,704 public members. You can see that Reading is still way ahead. Reading and Bracknell somehow are way ahead of the other local authorities, which are around the 0.5% of population membership, but we don't seem to be able to change that very much. Our best recruiting mechanism at the moment seems to be through some of the very popular services which are pushing membership, talking therapies in particular. And people, as you know, talking therapies gets an awful lot of compliments, and I think people do take up membership as well there. So we've had a bit of a look at some of the statistics on posts in social media, and one of the posts on becoming a governor was read by 439 people, which is a lot, and perhaps that really it was the influencer in filling all the vacancies. Anyway, we made various efforts to contact organizations and do things, but in the end, whatever the mechanism, we shall never know, we have filled all the vacancies, and that's in the election, and that's terrific. So that's very good. We do look at the AGM every now and then. Some of our suggestions seem to fly by the trust, which has its own ideas, but at least we've talked them over, and I know Martin's taken an interest, and Julie as well. So we have done what we can. Now we're having another look at engagement in a couple of next meetings by inviting people from services that really engage very well with the public. And the first one is going to be school nursing. And as we know, the school nurses have terrific engagement, and they have to rush around Berkshire in the autumn getting flu vaccine up the noses of the children. And they do a great job in getting a really good rate of vaccination. So we'll try and hear a bit more about how they do it at our next meeting. So people are welcome, of course. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom. Any questions for Tom? No? Andrew, then, please.
Yes, the Quality Assurance Group met on 22nd of February. We had a very moving account from Amy Wilding, the senior clinician in West Berks, and Katie Beckford, lead for community inpatients, of the realities of working on a COVID ward. Amy described her experiences, and as I say, it really was very moving. She's extremely proud of her team and the way they managed to keep going and pull together. Whilst the first wave was confusing and disorientating because they didn't really know what they were dealing with, the second wave was harder in a way because there were sicker patients and a lot more of them, although they did know better what they were doing. People had more experience, including the management. The nurses who were working on the wards managed to keep going, but it was very hard for those who were not able to work on the wards because they had to shield, and some of them got quite guilty about it. She felt the trust's support system for staff was brilliant. Psychologists were redeployed to supporting roles, provided both individual and group support. Sickness rates, which were up to about 10% when COVID was high because staff caught it, are down now to 3%, which is excellent. And the trust is closely monitoring health and well-being still. So she was really delighted with the way it had gone. Two of members of QUAG have joined a group which is looking at particular persistent complainants. These are people who make lots of complaints, one after the other, and are subject to slightly different treatment from the usual complainants. They get put on a list, and this group is looking at whether people on that list should stay on it, and that's continuing. One member of the group is joining a steering group for the project, which is developing a new measure of patient experience, which is quite a long-term thing. We reviewed the data on waiting lists, which is very much better than it used to be. Really is quite useful, and it's been very well presented, so you can understand it. We reviewed the Q3 patient experience and complaints report. The sample anonymised complaint was from a mother whose child was on Daisy ward.
Andrew, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. The mother of a child on Daisy ward, this was the sample anonymised complaint, was complaining about communication between herself and the ward, which is a very common theme. We agreed also that we would join NEDs on some of their virtual visits to routine meetings of teams. These tend to be monthly business meetings or huddles as part of the quality improvement program, and that's going ahead. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. I see you've made a request for anybody the governors who want to join to come forward, so I'm sure you'd welcome any new members. Any questions for Andrew? Okay, let's move on then. Thank you, colleagues, for that. To item 7, the executive.
Sorry, Martin, I couldn't quite get my hand. Just before you, in our pre-meeting, we suggested we said a little bit about our governor subgroups, and we suggested it was probably a good idea if Julie could send the terms of reference of all 3 groups to the new governors, just so they can see written out what the groups get up to, and we emphasise that anyone is welcome to join any of those meetings anytime they want. So give them a bit more idea of what we do.
John, thank you very much. Very good idea. I'm sure Julie will have that in hand already before we even ask for it.
Thank you, Julie. Yes, she's responded.
Okay, thank you for that. And actually, it's rather interesting that, John, particularly your committee, I think, is online. You've had a much better representation, I think, membership attending.
Yes, we have, and also a number of people that don't normally attend have been able to attend online, and I think that's been a useful learning experience. It's good to see the actual bodies because you chat about other things, but for the core meeting, it's been excellent. Yeah, thank you, Martin.
Fine, thank you very much. Okay, well, let's move on to item 7 then. Executive reports from the Trust. The first is the Patient Experience Q4 report. And as I said, Kim Delman is here as Liz Chapman is unable to attend the meeting today. Kim, over to you, just for sort of pick out the highlights, I think, and then we'll get some questions.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Yeah, so as Martin said, I'm Kim Delman, I'm complaints manager for the Trust. So I just have some brief highlights from the Q4 patient experience report for you. So starting with complaints, during Q4, there was a slight increase in the number of formal complaints that we received compared to the number of formal complaints that we received in Q3. So in Q4, we received 56 complaints compared to 51 complaints in Q3. So that was a slight increase. Out of those 56 that we received, 2 of those were related to COVID. But although there was a slight increase from 51 to 56 for those 2 quarters, over the whole year, the year as a whole, there was a reduction in informal complaints compared to the complaints that we received in the year 1920. So there was a slight increase from Q3 to Q4, but overall, the year there was a decrease. Looking at the number of compliments that were recorded, there was a total of 1,319 compliments recorded, which is a steady increase from Q2 and Q3, which is really encouraging to see that we're receiving those compliments and that they're being recorded, because it's just, for me in my role, it's really important that we get that balance between compliments and complaints. So it was encouraging to see that was increasing. Patient experience, the contract for the new patient experience tool has been awarded to an organisation called I Want Great Care. We're in the early days of planning and designing that survey, and it's going to be tested and over the course of the year, but it's planned to roll that out across all services from January 22. I don't have any more information on that at the moment, but we will keep you informed of progress of how that develops. So they are the highlights from the Q4 report. I'm happy to take any questions now that I can answer. Any questions that I can't answer, I'm happy to take away and feed into Julie for the minutes.
Kim, thank you very much indeed. Colleagues, any questions for Kim? John Barrett.
Yeah, hi Kim.
Hi.
I was looking at table 3 on page 24.
Yeah.
Looking at the WAM CHT complaint, that was around confidentiality. Always a little bit concerned when I see a flag against confidentiality in a CMHT. Do you have any more detail at all or not?
Not to hand, but I can certainly see if I can find some more information out for you, John.
If you could, please, because
yeah.
you know it's an important area, and it may just be.
Yeah. So it's the WAM CMHT.
Kim, it's Julian. I know the case. Obviously, I can't reveal the details. So good morning, everybody. Julian Ems, Chief Exec for the new governors. I sign off every complaint. The issue was a concern about the sharing of information, and the patient was unhappy about the sharing of information. It was deemed to be legitimate sharing of information to agencies within the kind of information sharing protocol.
Thank you, Julian. I hope to do something simple like that. Yes.
Well, it wasn't simple, John, but it was a good reason we're able to explain. Although I don't think the patient, person was happy.
I appreciate the patient may not understand the full reasons, but so thank you, Julian. That's very good.
Right, now I've got 3: Tom Lake, Graham Bridgman, John Wellham. So Tom.
Thank you. I've got 3 particular questions. One's very particular. On page 40, there's a reference to Family Safeguarding Mental Health Service, but it doesn't say anything about which local authorities are involved. Is that all local authorities in Berkshire, or is it one particular one? It's just a comment about page 40 of the.
Okay, I'll come back to you on that one as well, Tom.
Thank you.
So page 40, can we just summarise that? Page 40, what was the exact question, Tom?
Which local authorities are involved in the Family Safeguarding Mental Health Service? Is it all local authorities or particular? Are we talking about particular local authority?
Okay, I got that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. And the next one is a bit of a general thing, but when we say these numbers go up and down from month to month, go 2 to 3 or 3 to 4, if you know a little bit about statistics, you'll know that it's very difficult to draw any conclusion from going from 2 to 3 or anything. So we understand this, and you do what you can. But when it comes to the new patient experience report, the I Want Great Care, I think we really ought to ask that it be properly informed by statistical knowledge, that we draw conclusions which are statistically valid and don't sort of put indicators in it which are just really, there's just nothing you can say really looking at them. So we really ought to try and get some statistical expertise into it. Now, I don't know if these people who are doing it, I've got good statisticians somewhere, but that's a request from me, and okay. I hope the other governors will think about that. is what we're going to be seeing in reports, is it really statistically valid to indicate some of those indications?
Tom, yes, the answer is yes. So with I Want Great Care, the size of the survey will be significant. So as long as we get 15% of patients who've used our services, that's thousands of patients. And so this will be able to draw some statistically significant comparisons month by month. With complaints, because the volume is so low compared to the people who are treated. Of course, if we didn't give you any numbers at all, and we have done that in the past, people say, well, give you the size of the kind of numbers. So they're quite clearly not statistically significant. What they're doing is kind of giving you a flavour of the kind of volumes that are coming in, volume by service, and the kind of nature of them. But you're absolutely right. They are too small to draw any major conclusions within month. But the I Want Great Care, which is a survey of people's experience, of the tens of thousands of people have experienced, we will be able to do that, and that's obviously a core component, and benchmark against others too.
Yeah, it's just to say that that's great. Thank you very much. And the last thing is a particular case that came up in one of the complaints listed. So I don't want to go into, it's a case where there was a death from pneumonia, and the patient was referred by the GP to the community respiratory service. So as usual, I don't understand the severity grading, but I was going to ask that here's the case was that the GP referred a patient to the community respiratory service about a week before Christmas. It took them about 6 days to get round to it. I mean, it might have been very difficult circumstances. And then there was several days more before the patient needed to go, was taken to hospital. But I was just going to ask, in the case of a death like this, is there an investigation after this? Is this one of the cases in which we investigate the death? And the second question really is there a mismatch in expectation between the GP, who thinks the service is going to respond in a day or two, and perhaps the service, which knows that it may be quite a bit longer than that before it responds? Have we got an issue relating to sort of different expectations from the different sides?
Okay.
So the answer is yes. A death like that is investigated. Situations like that are investigated through serious incident review. And I can't answer the second question, but the review would. And
thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Yeah. So if it came up, Tom, that there was a mismatch, then obviously the recommendation would be to kind of work through and communicate that. If, on the other hand, there was a service failure to respond within accepted timeframes, then the response would be around that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Graham Bridgman.
Yeah, morning all. A couple of the tables in the report are, well, my immediate thought was they were RAG rated. I'm not certain whether it's RAG or RUG rated, because we've got a sort of an orange colour, which might be amber, might be red. And I was intrigued by table 1 because we seem to have orange. I'm going to call it orange. You can tell me what colour. Could you just
give us the page number, Graham?
This is table 1 on page 22.
Of the pack?
Of the pack.
22, thank you. Okay.
So on that table, this is the total of formal complaints received. What immediately struck me was that we have all of the orange are improving and all of the greens are worsening. So I thought I'd delve a little further. And I took a couple of them, and I don't quite understand what green worsening is. For example, community nursing, we appear to be comparing Q3 to Q3. Now, Q3 1920, quick math says it's 13. Q3 2021, quick math says it's 8. So if you've got 8 complaints this time round compared to 13 last time round, I thought that was improving, not worsening. So I'm just intrigued by what the test here is. The other thing about this table is what we're not told is what the cutoff on red green or red amber green or whatever we're classing here is. So we don't know what constitutes green, what the target is for this stuff.
I'm scrolling through and I can't see the chart that you're referring to. I must be looking.
It's on page 22 of the meeting pack. It's the first page of your report, Q4 report.
Kim, I can see it.
Okay.
the easiest way is to pick up the issue. Julie will have made a note, and we'll just make sure we've got a clear explanation in the minutes and in future, so it's sort of clear. I've got it sort of printed off so I can see it, and I can see the point Graham's making. So let's just clarify it and see if we can make the table fly off the page, and we can just understand exactly what it's saying.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Could I just comment briefly,
Tom?
Martin? It's just whether Q4 is bigger or less than Q3.
Yeah.
Up, whether it's up or down. It's just Q4 and Q3. It's not comparing with the previous year.
Yes, I think that's right.
If that's true, it would help to have that explanation in the report.
Yeah, I think that. Thank you, Graham. I think we'll just make sure there's some words put in to clarify. These things are always a bit tricky, actually, when you look at them, you know, with the arrows and the colours. But a brief explanation, someone in the table will help.
Okay.
I think.
Yeah.
John Wellham.
Thank you. Firstly, totally support Tom Lake in that it might be 13 one week, 14 the next week, coming from the same population. There's very little statistical significance, and that's the point that Tom's made. The reason I put my hand up was because of the issue of confidentiality, and with integrated care systems, the need to share information across the various providers is going to increase rather than decrease. And so it's an area which needs to be very carefully under control, and it may need to be taken right up to the NHS to make sure that there is a standard model that everybody can apply and make sure that they are protected from leaking of or sharing of private information. Thank you.
John, thank you. I'm sure that this is a well managed process in terms of protecting information, but we take your point. Ray Buckland.
Yes, hello. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, fine.
I just want to, I may be completely off base here, but I was reading through the pack, and on page 48, give you a moment to get there.
Yeah.
There are two West Berks entries. The second, if you look at the right-hand column, but one, it mentions the name Carl will be offered a further outpatient appointment. I didn't know if that was an acronym or whether the anonymization of the data had missed the name of the patient.
I would say the anonymization has been missed there.
Okay, that was the only comment I had. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ray. John Barrett.
Yeah, on page 29, table the text below table 13. I think it's hopefully it's just a typo in the last sentence there, because it gives two different percentages for care and treatment. So I'm assuming that the correct thing to the 30% should be communication, as in the top one. So it's just a typo there, I think, that needs correcting.
Yeah. Okay,
thank you.
Very good, John.
I love picking out things like that.
No, it's important. Any other questions for Kim before we move on? I think this level of detail is really important, and clearly there are some things that we always keep learning as to how we can present the data in a way that's more easily assimilated. But Kim, thank you for your time this morning.
You're welcome. If it's all right with everybody, then I'll leave the meeting now. But if you want me, you know where to get me.
Thank you very much, Kim.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Right, so we could move on to performance report, which is Julian's report, which we have in the pack, and the normal style is we invite questions. Any questions on Julian's report? Guy.
Thank you. Good morning. it's good to see on page 54 that the number of assaults on staff has reduced by what was 82 higher last quarter to actually below our target now, which is very good to see. So thank you for all those involved, and hopefully we'll still try to reduce it further. My concern is on page 61, the number of patients who have been placed out of our hospitals, acute patients, has increased very much, and I'm wondering how we're able to try to reduce that, please.
I think this is driven by COVID, but Julian, are you able to?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think, Guy, you're right to be concerned. It's not good for people to be treated for mental health conditions which could be treated more locally, far from home. There has certainly been an increase, Guy. So just in summary, at the start of the first lockdown and that sort of first wave, let's call it, there was a significant reduction in patients, and so we had sort of some spare capacity, or we didn't really because of COVID social distancing. The wards was at maximum capacity, but actually we were able to accommodate everybody. In the summer last year, particularly August time, we saw a huge increase of people presenting to mental health services who we'd never seen before at a scale that was completely unprecedented, and we had a huge surge as a consequence of that. That sort of new presentation has died down now, but we've seen people presenting with significant illnesses, which are definitely COVID related, Guy, you know, isolation, potentially loss of work, furlough, that kind of thing. And that has been replicated nationally. So we've seen a national increase in kind of bed occupancy, which has been particularly challenging for us. Having said that, there is always things we can do. There's still delays in terms of our processes internally and externally in terms of patient flow. So obviously continuing to work on making sure that people don't spend any time longer than necessary in hospital is important. And Berkshire Healthcare have played a part to play in that in terms of internal processes. And then there is things like finding suitable accommodation and everything else. But there is no doubt we're under pressure. It's receiving significant scrutiny. And to give you an idea, Guy, there are some days when there's not even a private bed available nationally at the moment. So it certainly is busy and demanding, but it is getting our full attention, I can assure you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Guy. Tom Lake.
Thank you. Two questions. The first one is just to ask Julian, what's the way forward, given that you failed to hire an executive director of strategy? You've now given us an interim position, and I wonder what your thinking is on the way forward from that.
Yeah, that's right. So Alex, who you're going to be hearing from later, who was the deputy chief executive and had quite a broad portfolio like deputies do. He was already overseeing HR, our people agenda at the board, the digital agenda, for example, as well as finance. Alex is picking up now all of the strategic stuff and is dropping finance, and that is likely now to be a permanent move with us going out to advert for a new chief finance officer. The reason for that is we think there's many more suitable candidates likely to come forward with the requisite skills than there are with what was quite a niche kind of portfolio. It's a portfolio I held before I came chief exec 10 years ago, and then Beverly Searle, who was a highly experienced director, had been an exec director for a decade before she came here, also picked up, and we just didn't have people with experience. Martin was on the interview panel with me, and we were confident it was the right decision. So delighted Alex is stepping up into a sort of broader, wider portfolio. Good for the organisation, good for him, and that is the plan, Tom. And the recruitment of the chief finance officer, new chief finance officer, is in terms of final interviews likely to be during September 2021 sometime, date to be confirmed.
Thank you very much. And the other question is a bit particular. It's about the cardiometabolic sequin that we've got, where certain patient, you know, some of the inpatients especially have to be assessed for their physical fitness and so on, and life problems. And it seems we keep missing this, and yet it ought to be quite sort of straightforward. It doesn't seem to be anything complicated. It's just that we never seem to, it never seems to quite get done. And I wonder if it's, I mean, obviously it's very difficult this year, but I wonder if there's something missing.
Yeah, I think you're right, Tom, actually. I don't think it is to do with COVID either, actually, if I'm honest with you. I mean, there's obviously a bit more detail behind the, I take your sort of view initially that, this is a simple sort of checklist to work through and everything else. There's a couple of things that are required. The breadth of the tests that are required are quite extensive, and it's required within a certain time frame. So that's the two things, the breadth and the time frame. And then the third is making sure it's all comprehensively recorded. So there's kind of three elements to it. So sometimes we're finding that people have had the full works in terms of that, but it's not recorded. Sometimes it's partial. Sometimes it's different parts of the system doing it. People have already had it done by the GP prior to admission and all the rest of it. But you're absolutely right. We know that people with severe mental illness die much sooner, not because of mental illness, but because of physical health conditions. So the reason why we keep exposing it is because it's a priority for us to improve. And we are doing quite a bit of work in terms of upskilling the workforce, educating the workforce. We've made it a priority in our plan on a page, which you'll see later in terms of physical healthcare. But I sort of I like your simplistic view because I sort of agree with it, really. And we won't let it go until we improve.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. John Barrett and then Graham Bridgman.
Yeah, hi. First of all, Julian, thank you. I can read it better this time. I think it's that down to Jenny's good adjustment of the report style presenting. But I wonder, are you able to tell us anything more about this I Want Great Care company? Because obviously Kim wasn't able to say any more about that. Can you fill us in a few more details?
Yeah, absolutely, I can. I think this is really important. I mean, if you think about what do you think is great value in healthcare, I think it's great patient experience plus outcomes over cost. And I think that in some services now we're able to show some good outcomes, IAPT, things like that. We've got an idea of our financial costs, how much it costs. Guy will be able to support that view. We're starting to break down the unit costs in some of our services and everything else. But the experience has been a bit difficult to get our arms around. So we're not, if you think about Berkshire Healthcare, we've got the widest portfolio of any healthcare provider in the region because we do the full range of mental health, but we've got a massive array of physical healthcare services too. At the moment, John, we've got services tending to do their own survey of patient experience. And consequently, we often have apples and pears. So with Martin at board, and he often does this, he says, well, give me a high level top view of what our patients think of us. And then when we say, well, in IAPT it's this, in cardiac it's this, we could be there all day. And I suppose that knowing your individual service position is important, but getting a top level organisational position is important. And nationally, John, there's only been one very crude method of doing that, and that was the family and friends test. Would you recommend this? Well, that question didn't go down very well, did it, in the place of safety or a psychiatric intensive care unit? It was a bit easier in physiotherapy, and it was also, you couldn't expand much. Yeah. So what we wanted to do is a midpoint, 5 or 6, 7 questions max that were really important to patients, and a number of governors have been helped us inform what those areas for questioning might be. And then what we brought in as a company who are skilled and expert at helping us roll out with a real customer-facing approach how you might conduct that survey, and then to go to Tom's point, to be able to do the analytics. So by the time we've finished, John, if you're an individual clinician, you should be able to see how your team or service is doing. But Martin would also be able to see the overall trust experience, but also then broken down, you might be able to compare Newbury Community Nursing with Slough Community Nursing, 2 identical services, and see if there are particular issues there. Because obviously measuring it is one thing, it should then allow us to pinpoint maybe the areas of experience where we've got weakness and actually do something about it.
And
so
obviously, sorry, June, being an independent company doing that gives more credibility to the data, because they're doing the analytics for you rather than you analysing your own data.
Yes, and to go to Graham's point, it should be in a format that should be comprehensible to anybody. So I've had a look at some of the work they already do, because you just put I want great care and put a trust in. You can see some of the graphs they do, and visually it should be quite straightforward. And that's important because of transparency. Patients should see how the trusts are doing, but the individual clinician doesn't need to wade through rafts and rafts of stuff like we've got now. It's quite hard to wade through the patient experience bit. We need to see at a glance how we're doing. So it's fixing those things, really.
So they're a company that specialise in doing this for other health trusts.
Yeah, in health and social care specialist. Yeah.
Thank you, Julian. That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Graham Bridgman and then Tom Lake.
Yeah, thanks. Specific question on, this is page 7 of the report, page 58 of the pack, and it's risk 5, the potential changes to ICS. I was interested, because as you'll probably appreciate, this is an area that interests me particularly, about there isn't a reference in the mitigation table to the potential for the Surrey ICS having the knock-on effect into Frimley, having a knock-on effect into either Thames Valley Bob or Berkshire ICS. So one of those two. So I'm interested in your thoughts on that and how you see that risk panning out and what you think you might put to compensate for that risk in the mitigation table.
So, Julian, do you want me just to say something first?
Yeah, please do, Martin. Yeah,
let me just give Julian a break. I think we have to recognise that the discussions over Frimley ICS and the positions of Surrey, etc., are very much being studied now. And my understanding is that either now or imminently a paper is going to Secretary of State with recommendations about what should happen. It's not a paper we've written, but it's a paper that's been done for NHS. Clearly, my concern from the chair's point of view is that whatever comes out of this, and to some extent, whatever solution, there's going to be some disruption somewhere to some organisation in the patch. But we've got to make sure that whatever comes out works. Now, we already have very good relationships as providers with our colleagues at Frimley Health and elsewhere and local authorities. I think that we've got to make sure that we don't disrupt those by any sort of organisational boundary changes should they occur. So that's my concern, is about that, making sure that we can carry on delivering high quality care to all the people we deliver to, working with our partners without interruption. And to some extent, I'm afraid this is going to be a political decision, I think. Julian.
Yeah, I think, I'm conscious we've got new governors. So ICS, Integrated Care Systems, collaborating with local authorities, NHS trusts, CCGs. We're in 2 at the moment. One called Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire, Berkshire West, which obviously has Berkshire West in it, half of Berkshire, and the other Frimley, which has Berkshire East in it, plus a bit of Hampshire and Surrey. The white paper that's come out has said ICSs, integrated care systems, should be entirely coterminous, consistent with upper tier local authority boundaries. Surrey and Hampshire have both written to the Secretary of State saying, thanks very much, we'd like that. So that clearly, as Graham says, places the Frimley ICS under sort of question, but also that question also then impacts on neighbouring integrated care systems. So where are we with it at the moment? So the NHS region want to preserve Frimley and buck the trend. So I've got a written report that sets out all the advantages of Frimley, but then goes on to say, we recognise this is not an NHS decision, Secretary of State, these are the options that we prefer. That report is saying overall, the stakeholders in the ICSs locally, so that's Surrey, Hampshire, Berkshire, Oxfordshire, Buckinghamshire and Frimley, on the whole, the majority of the view is the creation of a Thames Valley one as option 1, and then probably the second option is a Berkshire one, are probably the only 2 viable things. What Graham is alluding to is each of those have consequences. We will know the outcome of this, supposedly, early July time, but it won't be implemented for a number of months after that, probably by the April. So I take Graham's point, which is once we know what that is, we will now need to think about what the implications and impact of that is. If Frimley doesn't exist, one of the impacts regardless will be the level of disruption about creating something kind of new and shifting people about and all the rest of it, really, as the minimum level of disruption. The worst level of disruption is people end up with a scenario which they're unhappy with, and you end up with a sort of long running kind of dispute about boundaries where people are focused on boundaries rather than delivering care. So we will know in a month or two, and I think you're right, Graham, that risk will have to be updated to take account of the outcome of the Secretary of State's decision.
Can I just come back on that? Because see, my point wasn't necessarily that. It was that this is a known risk. It is known now. It may not come to pass, but it is a known risk, and therefore I would expect to see some anticipated mitigation, or at least a response, in the table now, not wait for the decision and then react.
Thank you. I think Graham, it's quite difficult in this sort of circumstance where we don't know what the answer is. And actually, in terms of
Martin, that's why it's a risk.
No, I understand. I do understand it's a risk. As a chair, I'm involved with discussions with the chairs of Frimley, the other chairs, and indeed we're discussing it just the other day about our response to this. And our response is absolutely to make sure there's no disruption to the services. So we've taken a view that, as Julian pointed out, that the paper seems to show that a Thames Valley one is probably the one that will come out. Who knows? But whatever happens, we as providers have to make sure we can carry on without disruption. And indeed, in terms of the changes are more likely to be affecting the CCGs than they are the providers. So I think in that sense, it's the CCGs who've got the very difficult job of working out how they structure themselves should Frimley be split apart. Isabel, I'm going to ask you, because I suspect your question's probably related to this, and then I'll come back to Tom.
Yes, it was. I went to a meeting which was nothing to do with this subject whatsoever, but it was based in Surrey. And from that meeting, there was tremendous pressure about Frimley wanting to be Surrey, full stop. And the chairman of the county council is also chairman of the Health and Wellbeing Board, who is very, for this. So, I'm just saying they're lobbying a great deal, just so that you are aware of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel. Tom.
Okay, thank you. Just two separate things, a piece of information and something relating to the plan on a page. So the information is that at the recent CCG meeting in the West, Berkshire West, it was reported that the Bob is ready to, they've got headhunters and they're ready to appoint managing directors for the places. That's to say, one of those will be the managing director of Berkshire West. So I asked about the job description and whether stakeholders had been consulted. So this seemed to be a bit of an open area. It seemed to be a bit early in this. So I think that's all just to say that it appears that that's all happening, and there is a chance for stakeholders like Berkshire Healthcare to have their say on the job description of the place manager. Anyway, that was my view anyway. And
that's absolutely right, Tom, and I expect to be involved in the selection process. The selection process will not take place until after the Secretary of State has made the decision around the boundaries, though.
Thank you. And then on the plan on a page, looking at the improving outcomes, good patient experience sector, what I was saying is that it looks as though the clinical criteria have sort of dropped off the bottom, and we used to have adherence to NICE guidance as a sort of one of the key principles. So I just wonder, I know you can't get everything. Writing a plan on a page is a bit of an art. It's an art as much as a science. But I just wondered if there was, it's all patient. It's a bit subjective at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, you've answered your own question. Really, there's only so much you can get on there, and if you take what we've got at the moment, reducing the number of people waiting is a message to staff, I guess, that would resonate with them. So this is really setting a kind of mindset mentality. Really, NICE has always been there. It gets audited and everything else, but signalling the kind of context of actually post recovery, waiting times and access is probably going to be the number one thing. It's probably more around that. It's art as much as science, although staff repeatedly say they find it kind of helpful in terms of a bit of a compass in terms of kind of what's important. They then go away, of course, and make it specific to their area. So they'll have specific and measurable targets and goals associated with those kind of broad areas of work. And as you said, if you notice, there is one on physical healthcare, which again, we made a priority this year on the back of the very comments you made, Tom, because we just want to signal it as a priority.
Thank you very much. That's very helpful.
Thank you. Well, we're going to move on to planning a page, but I guess we've had some discussion. So it's on page 63 of the pack, I think it is. But any other questions for Julian before we move on to staff satisfaction? Verity.
Yeah, it's more of a comment than a question.
That's fine.
It's great to see that you've highlighted addressing the physical health of people with severe and enduring mental health issues. I've said this many times before. It's depressing how many funerals I've been to of people who are dying in their 40s, 50s and 60s. It's a scandal that those of us with mental health issues are dying so much younger. And it's great that the Trust is targeting this. However, the problem is, it's a problem that actually a lot of it the Trust can't solve. It's about quality of life, which is affected by so many other things. And it's frustrating that I'm sure the Trust will do what it can, but while people still have issues with housing, issues with benefits, issues with income, issues with just not feeling part of wider society, I think all of those are going to have an impact on people's physical health.
I completely agree with that, Verity. And can I just explain the rationale why we did include it? We felt that we had to get our own house in order. And as you heard earlier, there are examples where I'm regularly on a platform saying the same as you, that it is one of the great health inequality scandals of our time that people with severe mental illness die at the same age as what people were dying in 1945 at the end of the First World War. It's absolutely scandalous. We've made no progress on that. And you've more eloquently outlined some of the underlying reasons for that, which are clearly not health driven at all. They're driven by other factors. Nevertheless, there is clearly some health factors at play here, and I do not think that organisations like ours have done enough in this space. And I think that before we start lecturing others, we've got to get our own house in order, and that was really the call to arms internally, for people to get our own house in order so that we can become advocates elsewhere, and particularly work into our systems and get ICSs who can have a bigger say in terms of some of those underlying causes. So that was the philosophy, but I completely agree with the statement where you came from, 100%.
Great comment, Verity. Thank you very much. John Barrett.
Thanks, Martin. Julian, just say, yeah, great. Couple of good positive things to see that under good patient experience, we're now saying use patient and carer feedback to drive improved services. I think that's obviously going along with the new carer strategy that the Trust is working on. And under the supporting our people opportunities show initiative, can you remind me about Bright Ideas? I know quality approved. Is Bright Ideas a specific scheme, or is it just ideas in inverted commas?
No, it's a specific scheme that probably means quite a bit to our staff. So the Bright Ideas is a concept we came up with about 8 or 9 years ago, which is nearly 5,000 people working across 98 sites. You have an innovation, a bright idea, a light bulb moment, John. How the heck do you get that known? Well, you simply just submit a page of A4 to our Bright Ideas inbox, and it gets considered as a bright idea by a virtual panel of experts we put together. If we don't think your idea is so bright, you still get a nice response. So, it's worthwhile. It doesn't just get ignored. The most recent bright idea was a member of our team. I think it was immunisation team. Alex has been involved in this, so he'll correct me if I'm wrong. But basically, they to address health inequalities, they put in a bid to charity, our charitable funds, to buy a bus that would go around then to the most deprived communities that we serve and directly provide healthcare from outside the bus straight directly into their communities. And we can use that for a variety of things. That came from a member of staff. Alex, I can't remember the name of the colleague, but have I got that basically right as a very recent answer?
Nikki Smith from our immunisations team had the bright idea, and we've just placed the order for a brand new bus. So very exciting. And, you know, you can see this being part of our delivery of vaccinations, immunisations into communities that need us. So lots of health promotion activity can come through that bus, and maybe something to look at expanding in the integrated care systems.
Okay,
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
So,
it's just me sleeping through my last 9 years as a governor. I haven't heard of the scheme. That's all.
No, that's all right. I mean, we tell you so much. It's information overload. But John,
thank you very much.
One of the things that we say, and what we want as an organisation, is people to be able to speak up. So when people talk about speaking up, they often think we're talking about raising concerns. Well, actually, if you speak up, you'll speak about your ideas as well as your concerns. So the kind of culture of people being able to raise their ideas. If you can raise an idea and you're happy enough to write to the exec about a bright idea, you're probably confident enough also to be candid enough to say, actually, this isn't quite right about how this is working. So it's part of that kind of philosophy of getting people to be able to speak up about good and bad.
Yeah, great. It's all part of the open culture. And I think these things are working really well, Julian. Yeah.
Thanks very much, John. Thanks, Julian. OK, let's move on then to staff survey results. Alex.
Thank you. I'm just going to share my screen. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a nice handover from John in terms of the update he'd had into his group from our HR colleagues about the staff survey. So this is the 2020 staff survey results, which I'm going to summarise some highlights from. You've had the papers in packs, and we can go through any questions you might have. I think going to the point around open culture and our people and staff feeling it's worthwhile speaking up and giving their feedback. Well, you can see this in the results as we come through on response rates. I mean, at a level of 60% in the last couple of years, that is a very large number, much higher than the average, wanting to share their experience and feedback with us, and largely because they know that feedback is going to be acted on. So there's a really important cycle that we get of feedback, acknowledgement, action and response from the trust back to staff. So fantastic response, makes all of the data and information that we get something we can really rely on. And I can assure you we've done a check on the demographic profile of those responses, and they reflect the demographic of our staff really well. So very strong response. The engagement score, which is a composite of 9 questions, which I'm going to show you in a minute, is a really important indicator around the level of engagement, energy, motivation our staff have. 7.5 is at top of class in a number of industries, not just the NHS. So we are the top of the pack in terms of that score. And when we have very highly engaged staff, we know they're going to be doing their very best for our patients. There is a direct correlation to staff engagement and patient care. So it's a really important indicator for us, and fantastic to see that continues to grow year on year. So the engagement score is made up of these 9 questions, and I'll just profile these now because the importance of these questions is seen by the NHS and the new NHS People Plan, to the extent that these questions will be mandated to be asked every quarter starting in July, and we're going to overlay a few of our usual pulse questions for those. So we're going to see a really good snapshot during the year alongside the main annual staff survey of engagement and how staff are feeling. So I think that's going to be a good development nationally. John referenced the discussion about the free text that we had, and Julian and I and other colleagues have been through probably over 2,000 responses about what went well during COVID for staff and what didn't go so well, and what people would like to continue. And the not so well stuff was about the very rapid redeployment and moving of staff we had to do in the very early days. That experience wasn't as positive as it could have been, for good reasons, because we had to make some very quick operational moves. Excellent learning taken from that feedback about any future approaches and processes for redeployment. That was probably one of the key themes that wasn't so good for staff that were affected by redeployment during that period. What was good and wants to be kept is our IT platform, our ways of connecting through Teams, communication from senior management to the whole organisation. So our all staff briefings that we commenced with 3,000 staff joining us on a live Teams broadcast, we were experimenting together right at the beginning of the pandemic, has now become a very important open communication line where the executive every 2 weeks, now moving to monthly, take in any questions from our staff and deal with those as they arise openly. And I think that's been really appreciated, to have that connection of open questioning and response from the executive team and the senior team. The other areas people want us to take forward are around the connectivity that the Microsoft Teams platform has allowed, and actually improved efficiency and productivity of our working together, particularly multidisciplinary teams across a wide geography, has been really strong. The sense of camaraderie that came through in Teams, this team spirit of responding to the pandemic, all things that teams want to capture and maintain. And on those points, we're going to be talking to you in a second about the wellbeing and resilience plan, the next phase of that, and what we're doing for our staff. But also, I plan to be engaging the whole organisation around the next stage of our digital strategy over the next few months. And we're going to initiate an online thought exchange where the whole organisation, our partners, our patients can feed into what they'd like to see maintained and developed into our digital strategy as we go forward, because we have a huge opportunity. So that's going to be an exciting engagement phase. So to the main staff survey results, all the questions are categorised into 10 themes, and you can see here in our cohort of all mental health trusts and all combined mental health and community trusts, so about 65 to 70 organisations, we are performing really well within our cohort and at top of class in a number of these themes. The stars here mean there has been a statistically significant improvement in the score since last time the survey was taken in 2019. And I'll just highlight safety culture. So Debbie and Minu and our clinical colleagues developing that culture of a learning organisation, removing the perspectives of blame if they existed, taking the burden out of investigations of serious incidents, and making sure we feel we have a safe culture to speak up, to learn and to improve clinical practice. And it's really encouraging to see that cultural change coming through in our results. And then I'd highlight the morale, the team working, the response around middle management and the support of middle management to their teams has been really good through this survey. So just some really strong highlights in those themes. And you'll be able to read in your packs, but this is where we pick out some of the detail of those changes. Lots to feel proud about in terms of the responses here. And in the bottom 4 rows, we talk about the opportunity for staff to influence. We just talked about bright ideas, quality improvement, our initiative to enable improvement at the front line, people to work in their teams and improve their area of work, and their clinical care to patients is really coming through in these survey response. So again, kind of the cultural impact of where we're giving that opportunity and empowering staff to make changes comes through these results. But you know, this is our strongest set of survey results overall. We're very well aware there are areas we still need to work on, and that includes equality, diversity, inclusion, and the experiences that are different for some of our minority groups compared to that overall positive view. We have some issues around MSK problems that we continue to analyse, and work pressures. And I know Julia is really helpfully holding us to account and to be true around the fact there are a number of additional unpaid hours being worked in some services that we need to address going forward. And we've been discussing that in our strategic people group only this week, so some work to do there. I think we'd say the results on our equality, diversity, inclusion are disappointing to the extent that they are remaining static, and some of the experiences, particularly in the workforce race equality standard, when compared to BAME and white staff, we're seeing there's got to be some traction and movement. Our EDI strategy is now published, and it's on us now to get those words into action and improve this experience that we're seeing here. With the Pride LGBT plus, we need to try and encourage and create an environment and culture where people feel okay to be sharing their whole selves, to be out, because it's not just important for staff, it's important for our patients to see that in the way they engage with us if they are LGBT too. So lots about building a culture of openness we'll continue to progress and improve on. Disability, we can see again some improvements here, but also we're seeing the differentials in experience that our strategy is very much aimed at making improvements on.
Hello.
Health and wellbeing, we're going to come on to next in terms of that update from Bridget and myself. But you can see here in some of the results, this gives us focus.
5 to 1.
Oh, sorry, could people go on to mute? Thank you. And the work pressures I've spoken about. There is feedback that people are feeling under pressure from last year's survey and into and coming through the various waves of COVID, and continues to be an area we need to focus on and support. So I'm going to talk about wellbeing in a second. Bridget's going to give you some more highlights when we come on to that presentation, but some really focused, integrated work through the development of our people and EDI strategies, and you can just see some examples in the papers there. I'll stop there and we'll take some questions. I'm just going to unshare so I can see you all. Guy.
Thanks very much. Guy's got his hand up, yeah.
Thank you, Alex. There's some positive results there and positive reflections and actions. For the benefit of new governors, I'm a staff governor too, representing the interests of our 1,200 non-clinical colleagues. Just a couple of points, please. On page 69, one of the comments from staff was that working from home can be very isolating, especially when living alone. And on page 77, only just over half of our disabled colleagues feel that their work is valued. I'm wondering what we can specifically do to help those groups of people, please.
Thanks, Guy. And I think on the isolation piece, you know, in the early stages and through most of last year, we were forced into a position where we needed to work at home if we could because of the government's guidance around lockdown and protecting people. I think as we're coming through the position now and we're able to begin to open up safely some office areas, we need to bring those people back that it is not suitable long term for people to continue to work at home. So we are asking that team leads and managers have those one-to-one conversations now to design a wellbeing plan that includes time in the office that addresses that isolation issue. So I expect to see that experience improve for people because we have those plans set in place. And sorry, the disability question.
Yeah, it was that 55%, only 55% of our disabled colleagues felt that the trust valued their work.
Yeah, I think again the invisibility that remote working has created and the feeling of isolation for some of our disabled colleagues has impacted quite significantly through the pandemic. We're working closely with our Purple Network, which is our disabled staff network, to bring back the visibility and support for those colleagues. And we've had some very successful coffee mornings, open house chats and connection for staff. And we need to continue to work to address that. Some of that will be addressed by a relaxation in the lockdown rules and being able to return to offices and the visibility. And we need to be messaging all the time that the work of everyone is valued, and that is the point. So we need to engage those staff to understand why they don't feel valued.
Thank you.
Isabel.
Some of the questions I was going to ask have been answered, but I'm chairman of a disabled club, and we have a lot of people who've got Down syndrome and autism, etc., etc., and they do find it very, very difficult to cope with this situation because they can't do their regular activities that they do. And so when they go to the hospitals, I think they feel in the same way. They're having to go there, but they're not able to continue their life in other ways. I'd like to take this opportunity to say that to thank everyone on the trust who work there, but also the volunteers. They have worked so hard for everybody, and I would just like to say thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Isabel. Tom Lake.
Thank you very much, Alex. This is a bit of a general point, but it's something that's been bothering me for years, really, and I realise now what's going on, what I think is going on. When you say the EDI strategy has been published, you've got to realise we governors don't have any access to the intranet, and that's probably a good thing. I mean, it's the right thing. But these strategies are actually public documents, I think, because they appear in the board minutes. But we only have scattered access to them. I mean, we've got no idea what the set of public current strategies is, because, you know, which strategies are public, because I'd have to dig back through a whole series of board minutes, years of board minutes. So it would be great if we could do an exercise of putting the current strategies into the governor's repository, and then we'd have the set of current strategies. Perhaps, I don't know if we could sort this out between the governors and Julie or something.
Of course,
I know it might not do it instantly, but for us, it's always a bit of a mystery as to what the strategies are.
So we'll get those two governors. The Trust 3-year, most recent Trust 3-year strategy is published on the website, as is the People strategy. We're just bringing forward the EDI strategy for publication. So the public will be able to see them, and we'll get these to you. Thank you.
Thank you. John Barrett.
Yeah, hi, Alex.
Hi.
One of the things that Tracy Slade talked about at our last Living Life to the Full was the staff that haven't declared whether they have a disability. I think we've got 11% who haven't declared one way or another, and really your thoughts on how we approach the situation to see if there's more help we can give to people to feel comfortable to declare if they want to.
I think we've got to be really clear why we're asking people to declare, whether they're disabled or LGBT. Just asking them to declare without being clear why, I can understand why people won't declare in some cases. So for our disabled staff group, we've just launched our reasonable adjustments approach, which is about having a one-to-one conversation with our disabled staff within teams to say what do you need to support you. Some very fundamental basic conversations that can't happen if the manager doesn't know about disability, or if there are particular needs that a conversation, a mature, trusting conversation could identify. So that's just one example of why we want to encourage disabled staff to declare.
And presumably support
meeting needs and supporting. Yeah.
Sorry, Alex. And presumably support for those managers and how to raise that issue.
Yes, and that's
going to be absolutely crucial, isn't it? The way it's done.
Some managers are not confident to have those conversations with their staff, and we've got support going in directly now around that in terms of training and good practice. So
thank you, Alex.
Thank you, John. Julia Prince.
Thanks, Martin. Just a couple of comments, really. Thanks, Alex, for your feedback on the staff survey. I think Trustee's been quite humble, really, aren't we? I think some of the results are really quite fantastic. We've done really well in benchmarking with our group, and I think it's really good to see that we are being quite humble about it, and also looking at what we need to learn still. We're a learning organisation and thinking, yes, that's great, but this is not so great, and we're going to start working on this. Thank you for raising the unpaid hours. That's obviously something that we have quite a lot of discussions about, and it's good to see that there's going to be a detailed review of this. Is that something that you'll feed back to this group, or how will we get that information?
I'm very happy to, Julia, and obviously through your membership of our strategic people group, it's great to have our chair of staff side with us discussing these important issues.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alex.
Okay, well, thanks, Julia. Thanks, Alex. I think we better move on to the next item, the People Recovery Plan. So I think it's again you, Alex, to lead.
I'm going to share my screen again. And Bridget has joined me. So again, you have these papers in advance, and we're going to be very happy to take any questions. As referenced by John in the discussion, we're really delighted to see Mark take up the role of the Wellbeing Guardian. And Mark's role is to assure, that we, the Trust, are doing the right things for our people in terms of wellbeing and resilience building, but also that the board in all of its work looks through the lens of wellbeing. And those are probably the two principal functions. Mark has been really helpful in supporting and advising us around the work we're doing this next stage around wellbeing that me and Bridget are going to speak to you about. But just wanted to profile that role and the importance of that role to us in the organisation. So I'm not going to go through in masses of detail, but I think the key point is to acknowledge and recognise that we have some tired people. There is a level of anxiety and stress that we could see coming through some of the staff survey results, and we still understand through our triangulation of feedback now through all staff briefings. As I said, the exec get to speak to the organisation every couple of weeks, so we're very up on how it feels in the organisation currently, and we know we need to have this wellbeing plan come forward to support, and we build this in sustainably so this offer is there. We've got this kind of framing going on around reflecting, recuperating, reconnecting, and the respect piece. So addressing the inequalities of experience that have been exacerbated by the COVID pandemic. We just profiled the experience of disabled staff. So the plan, in some ways, might look a bit obvious, but when the organisation is very, very busy, part of the challenge for us in this wellbeing delivery is to ask the organisation and teams and managers to carve out the time to do some of these important aspects of recovering. So connection, control, collaboration. This is what we mean by these things, helping people to recuperate and reconnect. There are people being disconnected and isolated away from their family and friends, and this will be impacting how they feel about life and how they're able to operate at work. Giving people that influence and support and control over their working environment and broader lives. So we saw in the staff survey results, really important to staff to feel they can influence improvement in their area, that they can influence the design, the future design of services, how we use digital. So our engagement in these areas is going to be really fundamental about addressing that control piece. Working together, connecting together in different ways when we've been forced to, but to really emphasise the point of collaboration and the community's piece around inequalities. So I'm just going to kind of leave my piece there at those 4 areas. You've got the pack, but I'd like to bring Bridget in about some specifics around our wellbeing offer that are there now, just to give some flavour of that alongside these slides. Hello, Bridget. I shall stop sharing.
Hello. So I think you've kind of covered the framework we used really neatly there, Alex. We were kind of just starting with the pillars that we know underpin everybody's well-being, and the kind of idea that you need all of the pillars in place in order to have a stable sense of well-being. And I think over the last year, lots of people have had some or many of those pillars removed, as we've not been able to see family and friends and play sports and go out and all of the kind of things that normally people keep keep them well. And then our working lives changed overnight as well, and actually that removed quite a lot of the things that support people's well-being in their workplace. So we were just sort of trying to get a framework in place. What we were really aware of was that when we plan how to rebuild, we can't set out a plan that's going to work for everybody. It's got to kind of work for the individual, because there'll be different things that they have been missing more than others, and that are more essential to them than other things. And so we kind of came up with the framework and the pillars there, and then we've just come out, and I don't know whether you want to pull the slides up again, Alex, because they kind of set out just a little bit under each of those pillars that we want our managers to think with each individual about. So the first thing really to do is to take the time to actually think with people, and that's with individuals and teams, and listen to them to help them reflect on what it's been like for the last year and a half. What's been good and what really hasn't helped them to function well. We know there's a lot of stress and burnout potential out there at the moment, and people are still working really hard. There's no let up. I think it's been recovery. We started talking about it a long time ago, but it's felt like rather a bumpy road so far, I think, for everybody, not just for the NHS. So we wanted to think about that, working with the teams and the individuals to kind of be able to adapt and accommodate the needs of both, really. And then we wanted to think about recuperation, so enabling each person to really take some control about how they manage their stress in their lives and how they manage it at works as well. So you've got some example here of what we have been thinking about, because I think the way that working lives have changed have been quite dramatic for some people, less so for others, but really dramatic for some people who've suddenly, from working with people day in and day out, face to face, have been suddenly sitting at home and working online. And so we wanted to understand what that control, to get them involved so that they could have a sense of control of what their working lives are going to be like for the next phase. And then collaboration, again, that's speaking to that thing about supporting line managers to enable their teams to find solutions that work for them, and supporting teams to plan for their future, both including the team well-being and the individual well-being. And we've got a number of events that support both, and that teams and people can book into or access. Connection is kind of part of that, and communities. So we know that's essential for human functioning, and we know that's been really difficult. So we wanted to consider that. We know people feel better if they feel connected. So that's been it's really basic, but it's really, really essential. And then we kind of thought about that. We know we've got some groups of people, and I think you just spoke about it as well as I was joining, that don't feel as included or haven't been as included in the thinking and planning and things that have been going on in the last period of time. So we know that feeling respected and included and valued is really core to well-being at work. So that's what we were thinking about, kind of in terms of how we make the plan work for everybody. So it's a framework we're offering, really, that we sort of build the plan on, and we'll work with teams to build the plan on. And there's quite a lot of work that's available for people to draw in. So I'm just going to share with you the work we have been doing. So we've kind of got the guy ropes. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit muddled here. We've got the guy ropes in the plan and the principles that's going to hold us steady as we work through this and focus when we implement the plan. And they're the things we know work generally. And we want to support people to connect with those that are important to them and to regain that sense of control over their working lives, and to be part of a team or collaboration where they feel connected and included and at home. And finally, we want to make sure everybody is included in the community. So that's the central message all the way. And the central message through COVID has been that it's been that we care, and that we try to have people's back as far as we possibly can. And even if people don't use the offer that's been out there, I think the message is a really important one and has been really important. So I just want to give you a little bit of detail about what we're doing in terms of the psychological support offer that we started to develop at the outset of COVID, and building on the staff support incident offer that we had just had agreed by the exec before the onset of COVID, and the compassionate leadership work that's obviously already really well established in the organisation. So the offer I'm going to present to you here, or just talk you through really quickly, is a system-wide offer. And since it's been system-wide since the onset of COVID, but since January, we've had funding for it via the ICSs from the NHSEI funds, and there's been really close collaboration between the psychological therapists and leads and our wellbeing and OD leads as well across the system, so including all of our partner organisations. We've taken a preventative stance, and let me just pull this slide up. We've taken a preventative stance all the way through.
You're not sharing anything, Bridget.
Hang on, that's weird. Why don't, let's see. Okay, it's a bit slow. Can you see that?
Something's coming through. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Sorry, that's my system a bit late in the day. So this is the kind of preventative stance we've taken. It's really, we've been working with managers and teams to focus on resilience right from the outset. And again, we've been doing that by supporting the same principles that we're building our recovery plan on, really the connection and the compassion, and the kind of linking people in. So this, what you're seeing on screen now, hopefully, is a summary of the approach and the offer. So as you can see on the left-hand side, the idea is to sustain where we've got it and develop where we haven't, a culture of well-being awareness and psychological mindedness that's based on the kind of based on ensuring that the basic foundations are in place. So on the right-hand side, you can see how the offers ranged from food and drinks through training and well-being apps to rapid access to mental health assessment and treatment. So it's a really broad offer, and we're constantly developing it. So we've just got now a system-wide website that's going, well, it's sort of, we're waiting for it to be signed off on a whitelist for NHS employees to actually be able to access from their own computers and phones, etc. So that's going live within the next couple of days. But this been what's held us steady throughout, and that's also what we're developing our wellbeing plan on. So I hope that makes sense and is helpful. I'm really happy to take any questions or thoughts you might have. If I can get this down again. Let's see.
Yeah, faces on the screen.
Yeah, that's just a really quick run through, so happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Bridget. Alex, are we happy to take questions on the whole
Please,
lot?
yeah, please.
Guy.
Yeah, thank you. It's a comment actually. On page 92, on the next steps, we talk about training managers to manage remotely, and that's a really positive step. I've seen that, I've recognized that as a need over the last few years, even before COVID, and it's so good to see it there. Thank you.
Very good.
Yeah, that's a work in progress, and I think it's something we started right from the outset to sort of support managers, but it's all been quite quick developments going on, so we're trying to consolidate it into a more kind of effective and easy to engage with offer, I think, now.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No, I think this shows a very comprehensive range of support, and thanks to Alex and to Bridget and colleagues for what you've been doing. So thank you very much. Alex, do you have any closing remarks? Or
No, that's good. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you very much indeed, both of you. If we could move on then to the governor feedback session, which is just an opportunity for governors to feedback on any things which they think might be relevant to the meeting from the other external activities. Anything anyone wants to raise? Okay. Any other business? Item 11. I was just going to say a few concluding comments, I may. I don't usually do this, but I thought I would just today. The first is the thing that strikes me about what we've been hearing today is, and let's not mince our words, the outstanding performance of the Trust. As Julia pointed out, the Trust is doing extremely well. And when I reflect on why that is, it always seems to me it's about this open listening approach, always learning and always improving, and recognizing there are some things we haven't got right, and not be shy about identifying those and trying to find solutions. So I know there's been great challenges. I think the Trust has done a great job, but we shouldn't ignore the fact there's still work to be done. The other things about these wider system changes, about the integrated care systems and politics, and the NHS has been around actually a little bit less long than me, but 70 odd years or so. And there's always been political change. So, there was right from the beginning, and things change. I think what we need to do is to make sure, of course, that we influence where we can decisions to be sensible decisions for the delivery of care to our patients. But some of these decisions are outside our control, and we should focus on making sure we work with our partners, whether it's local authorities or other NHS, etc., to make sure we can deliver excellent care for our patients. So I just sort of felt a bit of a philosophical thing there. John's got his hand up to correct me, no doubt.
No, indeed, Martin, completely agree with you, actually. I mean, I think it's been a really, really good meeting today, and very positive that the steps the Trust are taking and moving forward. One final piece of trivia, otherwise Julie will be very upset. This is the view from room 52 at the Bourous Hotel in Vaison-le-Romain, Julie, which I hope to be back to in September if they let me fly to France. So there we go.
Okay. Any other business from anybody else? No. Okay. Well, thanks so much, everyone. Thanks to the presenters. The next meeting is the 28th. Is it 28th? 20? Can't see. My glasses aren't strong enough. I think it's the 28th of July. We've got a special formal meeting to appoint a new non-executive director. You'll recall that Chris Fisher, who currently chairs our audit committee, will be standing down after a very long time with us. And we're expecting to have a new candidate for your consideration then. So with that, I'll thank everyone for your time. Enjoy the sunshine, but make sure you keep your hat on when you go outside, particularly if you've got hair like mine. Enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you very much. Oh, Julian, if you're free to have a call now, I'd just like to catch up.
Cheerio, everyone. Take care.
Thank you, Martin. Have a great day, everybody.